In this video, we're going to explore how we can create a world map like this on chart.js. And this is quite interesting because with this, we're going to use some extra features and a special plugin to create these kind of maps. And there's a lot more possible once you start to understand this. So let's start to explore how to do these kind of maps. In this video, we're going to explore how to create maps with chartjs-chart-geo plugin in chart.js. So basically, the chart.geo plugin is a plugin that will extend your chart into creating maps. So this question came from one of my other videos about how to fetch dynamically and update JSON data in chart.js. So this was a great question because this question came here from Yusuf Latif. So a special thank you to Yusuf for asking this question, and this is what he was asking. Hello, what if I'm working with GeoJSON file format? Does this tutorial apply? Well, I'm going to make a tutorial, but we're not going to use GeoJSON, but we're going to use TopoJSON. So this is a difference, and I will explain later on the difference. But if you're going to follow along, it should be no problem at all. So what we're going to do here first is we're going to create our default code, which you can find here on chartjs3.com getting started. And you might notice this error. I get this error, but I cannot fix it. But on Mozilla Firefox, it works fine. Anyway, what we need here is basically this specific code here. And if you would like to understand what this code does, you can watch this video here. However, in this case, we will not use much of this code except for the default structuring. So that's the only thing we really need here. So once we have this, I'm going to cut out this. I'm going to paste this in here, save this, and then refresh. Now we have a bar chart, which is phenomenal. However, we don't need this. So what we're going to do now is we need to get basically the plugin. So we're going to install or not really install, but add up the JavaScript plugin file. So this is basically from this here, which is called the chartjs-chart-geo, which is the GeoChart plugin, which gives you the functionality to create two different charts, which is the choropleth and the bubble maps. Oh, sorry, this is the choropleth. And if you are confused what this is, basically the choropleth is, if you look at it, so I'm going to give you some word definition here. Let's put it up. A choropleth in essence comes from two words. It's a Greek word of chora, and other one is plethos, of plethes, one or the other. I'm not 100% sure pronunciation. However, chora means location, and this one would mean many numbers or a large quantity of numbers. So basically, we're creating a map that will define the location based on large quantity of numbers. Think about a country that we highlight in different colors because of a certain condition. Alright, so that is basically what we're going to use. So we're going to use the choropleth here. However, it's not complicated, don't worry about it. What we need here is the following. We need to copy then the specific chart.js-geo plugin link. So I'm going to grab this one here. And I'm going to grab this one, including with the min.js. Here's another one that's the unpackaged without anything, but I prefer to have the JavaScript extension here, because sometimes without JavaScript extension, it doesn't work. So I'm going to copy this link here, put it in there, cut out this, put it in there. Alright, very important, make sure that this loads after this. Why? Because this has dependencies that needs to be first loaded here in the chart.js library. So if I refresh here, nothing new happened, which is normal because we didn't do anything else. Next, what we're going to do here is basically we're going to get the file, and the file is basically the URL. So this is the constant URL where we get the coordinates. Remember, I was talking about TopoJSON, and Yusuf, who asked the question, was talking about GeoJSON. So I'm going to show you exactly here what we're going to use, because we're going to use here TopoJSON. What is really, make sure you copy this URL here, which is the World Atlas at 2.0.2, and it says here the countries, and which is on scale of 1 by 50 meter, assuming 1 pixel equals 50 meter. So what we're going to do here, we're going to paste this in here, and then we have this. So what's the difference? Basically, GeoJSON would have a fixed shape of the country already written, fixed shape of country. TopoJSON has not fixed shapes, but it works with lines, and all these lines together create the shape of the country. So these lines, or more better, or arcs. So in chart.js, you are very familiar with arcs. If you look at the pie chart, those are arcs. So all these arcs are lines combined equals a country shape. That's it. Very simple, very straightforward. So that's why they say TopoJSON tend to be better because it's more accurate. If accurate, it gives you all these lines together, and probably more efficient because it's not a fixed item. However, doesn't matter. But in this case, we need this one. So very important. We're going to work with this TopoJSON. All right. So let's start to work with the fetch. So what we're going to do now here, we have the URL. We're going to have we're putting here the fetch. So we have the fetch, and we get the URL here. If you don't have the URL, you can even copy this, put it like that, or like that. Remember here as well, I'm using here this, and if you might look here, my file here is a .html, meaning that I'm just on my desktop. I'm not using any Ajax or a web server where we need Ajax. If you use Ajax, you need to be on a web server or a hosting to connect. Now we are just loading a specific file online. First, no dynamic interaction, so no need for a async with the fetch. You know, we have the async and await. No need for that. So what we're going to do here then is, once we get the response, so we say here then I want to get the result, which is basically the response. So make sure we have here 2 times parentheses. Then we say here result. Then we say here the result is a function itself. It says result.json, meaning we're going to parse. So we make sure you parentheses parse. So basically we're parsing JSON to JS. So what is parse? Parse means make something readable for. So if we parse from JSON, and this is a JavaScript code, so JSON will be parsed and make it readable for JavaScript. Very important. So we make it readable for the JavaScript, which should be, of course, because we are in JavaScript here. So once we have this, then we say then, and then we have the data point. So we're going to all these, the result with all the values we are now specifying as data point. And this data point here, we're going to put in curly braces, and in here we're going to give it a name. This data point, we're going to give it a renaming to countries. So now we have countries. And then we say here, these countries need to be converted into a chart.geo, which is a command specifically in chart.js, or specifically in this chart.geo. Then we say here dot TopoJSON. Remember, why TopoJSON? Because the JSON file we downloaded has this specific lines. These creates a single country, so there's multiple lines in here. I'm going to show you later where all these things are. So we say dot feature. So we're going to say TopoJSON, so it will indicate that we have multiple lines, and these are specified in the feature. And then we say here data point, comma, then we say here data point dot objects dot countries. All right. So then we have this here, and then dot features. Sounds all very confusing. Don't worry, just copy this; it will work. And then what we're going to do here, just for the sake of it, let's do a console log so we have an understanding here what this is. So if I save this now, refresh, nothing happens here, but let's check our console log. We get an array of 241 values, meaning that we have 241 countries. So you can see here a type is feature, all right? And then here, geometry, then we get all these coordinates, and all these coordinates are basically arcs. You can see here, these are a massive amount of arcs. And these are just lines or arcs. Why arcs and not basically lines? Because it can move in any kind of direction. Remember, country lines are not straight lines. They are all kind of shapes. So that's why you have this here. And you can see here a specific country here, country number 0, would have over, let's see how many here, over 169 lines or arcs. So you can imagine how many shapes are all combined. All right, so we have this here. What we could do as well is to get the specific item as well, or let's say, let's get the, well, we have this here, but let's go more deeper. We want to get the country. You can see the property and then the Zimbabwe. All right, so you can see that this country with this specific ID and all those many lines is called Zimbabwe. So how do we grab the specific country here? We just say here 0 dot, and then I'm just going to show you a bit more, and then after we're going to draw and read the chart. In 0, and then we have here the properties and then name. So we're going to grab properties, then later on you will understand why we do this. Name. If I save this, oh, and then I'm moving my things. Alright, put it back. You can see here now we get Zimbabwe. So what would be country number? We have 241. I think 240 is the last one in the array. Would be Sint Maarten. Alright. Or Saint Martin. If I save this one, let's see, do we have another one? None can be found. That is the last one. So if we have 100, what is 100? We can see here. We have here Nauru. Or I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. So we have all these different countries here now. So we have this here. What can we do? Or why is this important? Well, I'm going to show you now. We're going to loop through all these countries. And our loop eventually will combine with this together. So now we're going to cut out this, all of that. I want to put it in here. Why we put it in here? Because we need to be in this fetch functionality here. If you're outside the fetch, so let me show you this before, just to make sure you have a real full understanding of it. If the console log is not in, but outside of the fetch, well, let's refresh, we get an error. Country is not defined. Why? Because it's not in the fetch anymore. The fetch consists of all of the data. It's like almost a MySQL command. Everything within that and everything outside of that, we just reset it and we lose all the data here. Very similar functionality. So now you have an understanding of that, because what we want to do eventually is get the labels here. But we have to loop through all of these items here, and these labels will be the countries. That is basically what I want to do next. So I'm going to cut out everything here. I'm going to paste this in here, and then I have to do indent this. Alright, so we have the indentation. I'm going to cut out this one here. I just put it up here. Save that. Alright. So we have this here. Everything works fine. It's a long story here. Sorry about this. I'm not planning to be that long, but having a solid foundation is essential. Alright. Next, what are we going to do now is basically we have here the labels. And we're going to use a nice array functionality called map, which would mean we will loop through every specific country. So let's start to look at this. So we say here, what we can do here is countries. I'm going to show you this one. We say map. So you have also understanding. What I want to do is I just will duplicate this. I'll comment out this. We don't need this one anymore. But remember what that did. So we say here, countries. Why countries? Remember, countries equals the concept consisting of all of these values we have. And then we say the following, countries.map. Map basically says loop through every value in that specific array based on a certain condition. And then we say here, we're going to say these values we want to extract, we will just name them country. Alright, so we want to get the country. It can be anything. It could be land, it could be place, city, whatever. You can give it any name you want. This has no direct correlation with the values in the array. The only thing what I want to do here is basically give it a name which it eventually becomes, is the meaning of it. Remember that. So it's country right now, because from the countries we'll loop through all these countries, and we can give that will be probably the most descriptive name would be country. So we say in here, let's see. Oh, make sure we have this console log here. But then we say here arrow. Every country then would be dot properties dot name. So basically that's the upper one we just did. Only now we don't have to put in these numbers here. We just make it like a structure in here. It loops through it. Will understand that it will loop through every number we had before. So we have this one here, and if I save this, well, let's see what happens. Alright, so now we get 241 countries. Every country here. Beautiful. This is what I want. So we have this. Then, of course, you can figure out what we want to do with this. We're going to cut this out. We rename the label here. This. And there we have it. Oh, just make sure we put away this. It's already an array, so we don't need to put in here brackets for the array. So if I save this now, refresh, we can see here now we get every possible country here. Of course, not in alphabetic order, but it doesn't matter so much. And these numbers here are still from the bars here. Alright, next thing what we want to do here. So the labels here can be now countries, because it is basically the countries here. This makes sense. Of course, these numbers later can be gone, but Now I have that one. Alright, so what we want to do now is, now we want to do exactly the same here with the loop, here with the data. So in here, there is basically no real numbering right now, so I think it's the best is just to put in a random number here, and or random value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to map through it again, but now I will just say here, let's say countries, and then we do a math.random. So we say map. Just for the sake of it, I just want to show you, because our goal is basically to draw a chart. So then we say here, and then we say country, and here will be the following. So we need to break this down. Let's say here feature, and this feature is basically within the array or in the specific file here, the JSON TopoJSON file. And then we say here, we can just say this is country, and then we say comma, we will value, and this value is just a random value right now because there's no real correlation. And the goal was to just draw a map, but the map has basically no other functionality here. Alright, so we have this here. Make sure you pay attention here. You can see here we have how many of these? 1, 2, 3. Alright, so we have here 2 of these items here, parentheses, there we are. So we have the data now. So once we have this, basically here we're done. What we could do here is just remove this because we have no background color here. We don't put anything else in here. These are already defined within the functionality here. Alright, so the next one is then eventually the config, and the config will have well, we have our data here, that's correct, but what we want to do as a type. Remember what I indicated here, if I'm save it, no, it is the choropleth or the choropleth. So that's the right way in English, choropleth. So choropleth map, that's the type that we're going to make. So then here we don't have any scales here. Basically these items can be removed, but our options will have a few items. So what I can do maybe is just to save this, just to check if we get a map. Alright, so we're getting something here. You see we get these countries here. Alright, and it's just a random number, so we should expect here, as you can see, it starts to just change consistently. However, you can see you have this tiny map in here, and we have to do a lot of items. We get all of this is perfect, but we're still missing items. So what I want to do is the following. You can see there's a built-in legend here, although this legend, I don't know exactly what's, since this is a random number, there's no value in here, but it goes from 0 to 1. However, this country here, the legend can be removed. So we can say here, we're probably here for plugins. Let's remove that. And then after we have to say here, a legend, display false. Alright, save that. Then we have removed that one there up. You can see it's slightly slow. Why is it? Because it's in a unpackage.com, or basically this is like unpacked and it needs to load here. Same here with this. So it loads, it packs, or it extracts itself, and then it does certain things. So alright, so we have this here. Of course, I want the entire world map. This is a bit ridiculous because this is just only one specific country here, and here we have Russia. So it would not make any sense that Russia is here because Russia would not be here. It should be in a different way in the map being displayed. So that's what we're going to do right now. So for this, we have to do our items. So let's start to do the skills. Yeah, I realize that we need to do the skills first. So we can say in the skills, what we're going to say here is the X and Y value. So in the X and Y skill, we're going to say projection. The projection would be equal Earth. And this is a specific command from the GeoChart.js or chart.js-geo. So if I save this, refresh, our map is now more extensive. You can see now we are starting to get something. We remove our legend and we have here now everything more better and appropriate being displayed. But what I want to do more here, and it's probably more common, is we want to have maybe these lines here. The latitude and yeah, I forgot the other term. The latitude and the, I want to say gratitude, but it's not gratitude. I will search for it later on. However, the lines that will indicate the time zones and etc. So we need to have those lines as well. So let's start to work on that. So we'll go here in the options as well. And then in the options, what we're going to do more, let's put it here up. we're going to say here, because these are all options built in chart. So we say here show outline. And if we do this, and we set this on true, comma, you will see now we get here a line around the world globe, which is beautiful because now it looks like a more appropriate map. But of course we need the next one, which is basically the graticule. The graticule are the two items. I'm going to search what those terms are. So I'm going to say your graticule, graticule, and the graticule, we put this on. Oh, sorry, not in here, of course, sorry. Just above the outline. You set this on true as well, comma, save. Alright, so I'm just going to check. I think it's the altitude, latitude and altitude. That is the term. So we have the latitude and the altitude lines in here, and that is basically what I was looking for. And the show the graticule. The graticule are basically the latitude and altitude lines together. Alright, so those are the most important ones. So once we have this, you can see here now, if you hover over it here, we now have our nice chart here working, or basically our own map. There's of course a lot more. I would highly recommend you to go to the website. I think it's called World Atlas. And try to search on this one here. There's one with 100, I think as well. So it'll refresh. Let's see if we can grab here. Maybe it gives an error. I don't know. Doesn't work. Nope. Doesn't exist. There's another one with, or maybe 150. No, it doesn't show here. Sorry. So there's one with, let's do it back 150. I know there's one with 100 and the other one is 10. It's more zoomed in. The one that's more zoomed in is more appropriate if you want to have the countries more focused on. Then you can have all these different states and or provinces or prefectures, depending on what your country calls them. So that is the final part for this. I will probably make another video where we can get a specific country to zoom in on that and then explore that one more. However, this is just a quick exploration of this topic here. If you have any questions, you can always put them in the comment section below. So if you enjoyed this video and maybe you want to go a bit more deeper with fetching files, I would highly recommend this specific video here, Fetch and Display Advanced JSON Data, where you learn as well on how to go more deeper. But this one will be going with different items such as the the Ajax basically, or we're going to get it and we can make it dynamic as well. So this one explores it a bit more deeper, so I highly recommend to explore this as well.